I'm gonna be like dead serious. What I'm wearing is I've got these running shorts that I bought about a year ago when I weighed a lot less, and they were pretty snug. They were pretty snug then, and but then I gained some weight back, and they're definitely too small, and I couldn't really go outside in them. And then I've got UGG boots on because the bottoms are starting to peel off, but they work because there's like a really uncomfortable crossbar on this stool that hurts my feet,
Oh,
so I need to wear the UGG boots.
I love everything you are describing right now. This is wonderful. Love it.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of A Great Conversation here on Nerds and Suits. Today, my guest is classy Clarke Wolfe. She is one half of the legendary Schmoedown team, the Shire Wolves. She's the current commissioner of the league. She's an actress. She's a writer. She does all kinds of cool stuff. She just recently made a quick announcement that she's taking a little hiatus from Los Angeles to explore some cool opportunities in Atlanta. And she talks about that. She talks about her hosting career, acting, all that stuff. So talking to Clarke today was wonderful. It was really fun. I hadn't gotten to talk to Clarke really in any kind of capacity like this in probably a year since last Comic-Con, and she's funny. She just tells good stories and is very down to earth. So if you guys are fans of Clarke already, I think you'll enjoy this. If you don't know who Clarke is, then I think you also will enjoy this because she's great. This is brought to you guys, by the way, by the patrons of the Nerd Network, all of my Infinity tier patrons, a big time straightening of the tie to you. Brianne Chandler, Jake Yacovetta, John Patterson, Lucas Shawshek, Nicole Krafik, and Trevor Fast. A big time thank you. If you're not at the Infinity level, you will hear your name, some of the lower levels, and see your name in the credits. Most of the levels are there included. So thanks so much for your support, guys. It really does mean the world. If you haven't already checked out what we're doing on the NIS Endurance, check out last Monday's goal setting show. It's a whole new fun thing, the NIS Endurance being the metaphorical starship that we're all blasting off in the stratosphere together on. That sounds absurd to say out loud, but is still a fun thing we're doing, and I'm very excited to have all you guys on board doing it with me, so check that out. Otherwise, enjoy the episode today, guys. I very much appreciate you watching and listening. Be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment when the video is over. You guys don't know how much it means to me when you guys leave quick comments, just your thoughts on the episode. It goes a long way. So thanks for listening and watching, and I will see you guys very soon.
Yeah, so we're winding back into Schmoedown's season here, and Clarke Wolfe is not competing this time. It's such a sad state of affairs that we have. I'm so used to getting beaten in tournament season by you. So what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, I was about to say, is it a sad state? Is it? You're gonna win, Ben. You're gonna win.
Well, I'm not in the tournament in the singles.
Okay.
Thankfully, because I have this number one contender they just announced today. It's Chris Jericho versus Kevin Smith, and Andrew
yes,
and
I saw. Okay,
undercards. That's exciting. It should be fun.
That's awesome. That's going to be a great match, and it's going to be really good for you guys for sure.
Yeah, it should be good. The digital nature of the matches, it's been fun still. I don't know if you've gotten to watch too many of them, but they're cool. They're exciting. It's just it lacks that energy in the studio, or the live.
It's hard. I was doing I'm behind the scenes. It hasn't been announced yet, but working on another sort of trivia show. It's nothing like the Schmoedown, but it's horror focused. And okay, cool. And we've noticed because originally this show also started live in person, but because of COVID, we obviously have to do it digitally. And we noticed kind of the same thing. It's still really fun and it's still a great game, but there are certain give and take elements that we weren't anticipating with doing it, sort of digitally instead of in person. So it does take some getting used to.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's just kind of the state of the world right now in general, right? Everything is kind of experiencing that exact same shift, and I wonder when it's over, when that happens, what it's even going to look like. Like, how much of this stuff are we just going to go to? You don't actually go anywhere to do anything,
I do know because I've recently driven to Atlanta, where I'm from, with my dog, who is sniffing right outside the door. I can actually hear him. He's probably very upset he's not inside this room right now. But I bring that up because, I just sort of got to a point where when DC Daily got canceled and we were done with that and we were doing that digitally anyway, I was kind of like, well, I work out from home. I do happy hours from home. I work from home. I do all these things from home. And I have a feeling that Atlanta, the city, is going to open up a little bit faster than Los Angeles. So why not just go for it, and go out there and see what I can do out there while everything's closed. So to your point, I kind of think a lot of this is going to continue. I think we've really proven that we can accomplish a lot digitally, and it's really good for the environment. It sucks for some social elements, of course, but yeah, it's really going to be interesting to see what happens when this passes, because it will pass.
Definitely. I mean, look, my plan to launch this show originally was to do in-person stuff. I mean, that was the goal. That was the thing I was excited about, and obviously, it had to launch like this, and it's so much more accomplishable. Like it's so much easier to book guests, and all my friends,
Yes.
especially, right? Like especially my friends, like I mean, everybody was busy, but like my friends who are like on television shows where they never have time, and the answer would just be like, yeah, probably someday, but like I'm never going to be able to drive to where you are and sit down for an hour. That'll never happen. I can actually
Exactly.
get those people on now, which is wild.
It's amazing. I mean, there are so many advantages to being able to make it, I guess, professionally acceptable to do things like this. There's so
Yeah.
many advantages, but obviously, again, there are some disadvantages as well. So it's going to be interesting to see sort of how it all shakes out.
Yeah. So how long have you been back in Atlanta for?
I got in on the 3rd of July, right before the
Okay.
4th. Yeah, and it was a really great, easy drive. My friend Chelsea, who is the director of the movie I was in, Satanic Panic, she is from a farm in Ohio. And where she's from in Ohio is like 11 hours away from Atlanta. And so she was like, look, if you want to take the northern route and make a detour in Ohio, I will ride with you, and we can drive together and travel together, and I'm close with her family as well. So I did do that, which was great. But yeah, I got into Atlanta on Friday the 3rd, and it's been good. It's been an adjustment, but it's been interesting for many reasons.
I saw that you had posted on Instagram that you were talking about acting, and I know that's a huge
Yeah.
passion of yours. Obviously, you mentioned the film Satanic Panic, and I remember having a conversation with you. I think it was like Sam's birthday a couple years ago. You were talking about you were doing a lot of writing, and that was very much kind of where your focus wanted to go. So you mentioned Leslie Kahn. Talk to me a little bit about that. I mean, that this sort of reintroduction into your biggest passion.
Well, thank you for asking about that, actually, because I'm very happy and excited to talk about it. So here's what's interesting, and I don't think that people, especially for people who watch us on movie talk shows, who watch us on the Schmoedown,
Yeah.
who love movies and pop culture, I don't know if they necessarily realize that every type of acting is different. If you're going in for a commercial audition, it is different than a film audition. It is different than a TV audition. It is different than a theater audition. And it's not enough to just be like, oh, I'm a good actor. And it's like, well, great, but can you audition? And do you understand how to differentiate material when it comes to a multicam versus a 1 hour procedural versus stage versus an indie drama going to Sundance and so on? So that was the biggest thing that I wish I had known, or somebody had told me. I've been in Los Angeles for 12 years, and I still live in Los Angeles. I'm home because I have this incredible happenstance opportunity where my parents live in the city of Atlanta, and so I've been able to like stay with them, and I can give this a go. But I still have an apartment in Los Angeles and all of that. So I bring this up because when I was younger, I had a commercial agent, but I didn't know how to audition for commercials. And so it was like, and nobody said, hey, there's a very distinct way to do this, and so on. So that was the biggest eye opener for me. My friend Todd Stashwick, who is an actor and a writer, you'd know him. He's in that geek space. He's always playing D&D. Okay, yeah. So Todd has not only gone to Leslie as a student, but he has taught with Leslie Kahn. And this is actually kind of a funny story. So I got an audition for the Kim Possible live action Disney Channel movie to audition for Shigo, who is the villain of the movie, and alongside Draken. And so I reached out to a handful of people and said, hey, I put it on social media. I think I need coaching. I don't know who to go to help me with this. And Todd, who's a friend, was like, I can coach you, and I was like, okay, well, how much is it? And he was like, babysit my kid one night. We're good. So I was like, okay, that's great. So I went to Todd. I handed him the sides. He looked at them for approximately 20 seconds and went, "Oh, okay, well, this is what you need to do, blah, blah, blah. So here, there, this." And I just have never seen anybody break down material like that. Well, the funny story part is he then went to his agents and said, "Hey, can I go read for this Draken role in this Kim Possible movie?" And he booked the part, and he is Draken in the movie.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in the wild, so I was at the premiere and I was like watching him, and of course I just so happened to be friends with one of the writers. That is not how I got the audition, but it
Yeah.
was just so crazy. And I'm sitting there watching the scenes that he was helping me rehearse, and then for the audition, and then he's up there playing the part. It was crazy. So Leslie is a very specific kind of teacher, and I haven't taken with Leslie directly, but with her teachers, you are not
Yeah.
learning how to be an actor. You're learning how to break down material. You're learning
Yeah.
how to audition, and that has been. So I've been working with her company on and off for about 6 months, and I'm so excited with the progress that I've made. It's been really cool. So I'm happy to like jump back in and.
Yeah.
It's all about sharpening the tools in your tool belt,
100%. Yeah. And I mean, that type of training, it's very like industry specific training, which like
Yes.
when I was 17, I was 16, 17. I think I got a scholarship to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Awesome.
And I moved out here by myself when I was 17 to Los Angeles. If anybody doesn't have any idea what I'm talking about, I figure you probably do. And I went to that school for a year, and I did like all the things. I did musical class, a dance class, and all of it. And it wasn't totally for me. Like acting, in the end, wasn't my great passion. But I do remember having those conversations about it's so much. You don't watch like Hugh Jackman, and it's just like, oh, he's amazing. You're like, what a great performance. But he's like, he gets to do that because he's Hugh Jackman. He gets to just do whatever he wants, right? They're like, hey, Hugh, let's hire you for the part. Be Hugh Jackman. But if you're not Hugh Jackman and you're trying to walk into the room and book the part, like it's very specific what they want. Very specific.
I wish more people who loved movies and comment on movies or film or television or pop culture or whatever, I wish they understood. Because again, we talk about this on all those movie talk shows all the time. Like, so-and-so has been hired to write this movie. And you're like, oh, but their last blockbuster sucked. And you're like, yeah. But they didn't, their name is on it. They didn't write that. You can't. So to me, it's kind of the same thing with the acting. It's like, it's just so interesting how it goes, but it's not as simple as, well, in my soul, here's what I came up with. And it's like, nah, man, you hit your mark, you deliver your line, you do what the director tells you to do. And if you're lucky, you get to put your special sauce on top of it, Yeah. So it's cool. I mean, I like that. Some people, they hate that. They hate it. But I like it.
Well, I think sort of the necessity to adapt to whatever like the business wants of you is something that's very important. And I've noticed a lot of this. Like I had a conversation recently with Andrew Guy, who my co-host on all the action stuff, and we were talking about TikTok specifically because it's like this big thing everyone's on right now. It's blowing up, 100 million users or something crazy like that. And he was sort of like, I mean, if you have a presence on social media and you do something on TikTok and it breaks for you, that's great. But if you're famous for TikTok, like it's hard for me to perceive that as like a piece of art that I'm impressed by. Right.
Yes.
And it's like, I understand where that, like, I sort of understand that theory, but the way content has now worked is that everything is broken down, starting from like the studio system of television in the 40s and 50s to now. Instagram is content, YouTube is content, television has become antiquated, and YouTube at this point is almost like antiquated compared to short form media in the way that TV used to be, right?
Yeah.
Like TikTok is media. Like that's what people are making for media now. And somebody is going to sell a TV show because of their TikTok, or they're just going to have a TikTok show that Lionsgate produces. Like that, and that's where we're all in. So it's like you have to sort of adapt to like what content is being made, which is a bummer because if you're traditionally somebody who wants to do something one specific way, and that's like sort of avenue is not there. Like I wanted to be a host, like truly a real, like Ryan Seacrest's job doesn't exist anymore. That's not a position you can go after. Those jobs don't exist. Like,
yeah, that's hard because Ryan Seacrest's job, as you say, with like the Hugh Jackman example, Ryan Seacrest's job exists for Ryan Seacrest.
Yeah, exactly.
But and they go to him for everything. He hosts like 10 shows. I do think though, when we get back into the swing of things and when we are able to go back in studios, I do believe that there is going to be it's going to be like a rubber band and it's just going to go fling, and they're going to need so much content that I do think
Yeah.
we might have a shift back to sort of old school. And when I say old school, I mean like 2000s film and television. And maybe
Yeah.
there will be more traditional media, but you're right. Unless you're Ryan Seacrest, it is very hard to book those types of jobs.
Well, so if you're sort of having a return to acting is like the major passion for you, I mean, you have been a very successful host for the better part of the last decade. How did you make that transition to find so much success in hosting? Where did that start for you?
Honestly, it came from loving film and television and pop culture. I mean, truly, like it was I realized like when I moved to LA, so I got to LA in 2008 when the economy bottomed out, and there was very little anything going on. And then a writer's strike was like not far behind, and it was a very weird time in our business. YouTube was just popping, like, all that. And for me, I tried, like I mentioned earlier, I tried to do commercials or, like get an agent, but like I was not. That's the thing, is like to really stand out when you first get to town, you have to either be stunningly beautiful, you have to be like a model beautiful, or you have to have some kind of niche or some kind of thing. And I just didn't have any of that. So when YouTube really started popping and entertainment, pop culture commentary, and that kind of thing started becoming a thing, I was like, I bet that if I was able to become known in some way, and not like a scandalous weird way, but in some way,
Yeah, yeah.
um, I could probably get into a room faster than if I was swimming upstream trying to book a commercial or a guest star or a this or a that, which just was not working for me. And because I was a film major in college and studied film academically and also have a theater background, so I felt very comfortable in live situations and on my feet. That is sort of, I targeted those specific types of shows. And then AMC Movie Talk was the first one that I actually booked. And that, the digital world is so small. And so that opened so much else up. And that's how that kind of started going.
Was there a moment like when that was sort of happening for you after a couple of years where you were like, this is great, and I just want to do this as my career? Or was it always a little bit of a means to an end for you?
I wanted to have an entertainment correspondent job with Nerdist. That was like my dream. I wanted, and I worked for Nerdist for years. In fact, I worked with them last fall, like as recently as last fall. They're still, Dan Casey and Rachel Hine and Kyle Anderson. Yeah. They're still great friends, and we still work together any opportunity that we can. But at the time, Nerdist Industries was like popping. And that was like the geek culture space. And I had been a fan of their work. And so I started actually writing for them. And when I started submitting as a writer, I was like, hey, you can read my scripts because I'm a host and I'm on camera talent and I like writing, but this is what my end goal is. And so they used me. I mean, Nerdist was my regular gig for years, but there was never like a full-time entertainment correspondent job at Nerdist. It was like was the managing editor, Rachel was the editor-in-chief, but they talked about an entertainment correspondent or an entertainment specific vertical for years, and it just never quite materialized. But that was, for so long, that was like what I wanted. That was going after it, what I wanted.
A lot of those companies, like the Movie Talk, Colliders, the Nerdists of the world, AfterBuzz, they all have had sort of similar trajectories where it's very, very, very difficult to monetize the business. But obviously, advertising works, and if shows get a lot of views, that works. But ultimately, it's about the connection that the fans have to that specific talent. Usually, and if the talent leaves, the brand has a harder time just replacing that talent. There's very few of them. I think IGN has good funding, but even I've heard there's problems there. So, why do you think that why do you think hosts have such a hard time building that brand equity by themselves? Why is it that they have to go to these corporation type of jobs first to then go solo with their own YouTube channels?
I think it's because they have to, because it takes a brand investing in you. Takes a brand deciding we are going to go all in on this person or 3 correspondents. They are our face. And I think for a lot of these brands, it is much more economical for them to hire people who do 5 jobs, where they write, they edit, they manage a website. They don't just do on-camera work. And so I think that it is, brands don't invest in one person. I mean, like for instance, if we want to use Jessica Chobot, who's wonderful at what she does, and she's a lovely person. She was the host of Nerdist News for several years, but she had already come from G4. You know what I mean? So she had already had sort of built her brand, or G4 helped her to build her brand, so that when she went over to Nerdist, she was already kind of a known commodity. But like in terms of brands specifically building talent, I think it's just cheaper for them to not hire on-camera talent exclusively and specifically. And that's too bad, because I think while there are so many people who are multi-hyphenates who are incredibly talented, Dan Casey, who, if your audience doesn't know, has been at Nerdist for a long time, and he is
Amazing.
one of the most, oh my God, he is so fast. It is remarkable how good he is on talent, but also what a good writer he is, and also what a good industry person he is. He's just, people like working with him. So he is the multi-hyphenate, but not all people do that, right? It's actually rare to find a Dan Casey. And so that's what I think. I think it takes a brand investing in talent. And unfortunately, they don't have, they elect to not spend their money on that, which sucks.
Yeah. And then what ends up happening is a lot of those brands go away,
right?
Because and I think you're seeing it so much now with talent sort of doing their own thing. So was there somewhere, because obviously now you're taking a quick hiatus in Atlanta to do the stuff there before you come back, but was there a moment, maybe even when things were still a little more normal, that you were looking at all this space and just like, this is not the end game. I'm clearly, this is I got to get out of this and get back to my thing. Like when was that aha moment for you that got to divert?
So I will say that when I started noticing the digital bubble shrinking, right? Because I sort of hopped into AMC Movie Talk in 2013, where everything was like booming. It was huge. And then, noticed 2014, 2015, probably 2015-ish, that bubble starting to go like this. And I had to think to myself, and I had been admittedly disappointed that, the dream I had of being a full-time correspondent for this one brand in particular. And again, I worked with them last October. So I've continued to work with them, but not in the way that maybe I would have liked. I think noticing that wasn't going to happen. And I think, frankly, that is something that's really hard for us, like creatives, to do, is recognize the hard business realities of what's going on, and looking at a situation and going, yeah, I'm not getting a call not because of my talent or because people don't like me. I'm not getting a call because there's no money to call me. I think that's when I started to go, okay. And so let's see, I shot Satanic Panic in 2018. I shot December in the beginning of 2019. Like I actively was like, okay, I want to try to get this hosty stuff going as long as I can, because it's a great career and I really like doing it. And that's when I got hired at Fandom in 2018, in the beginning of 2018. They didn't go under, but they changed their business in a big way, and then got DC Daily at the end of 2018. So I would say it was like 2017 really where I kind of was like, money is getting tight, work is getting less and less, and it's not as a result of my performance, it's as a result of our business changing. So that, and also then you have to start going like, there's so much heartache that goes into putting yourself on tape and auditioning
Yeah.
and going on the meetings and, you know, and doing all the things and then not getting it. And so I think for me, I had to kind of go, is this even what you really want? And the answer was no, this is not what I really want right now. So that's when the wheels started turning and I decided to try to think about how to go about pursuing a change into scripted.
It's so bizarre if you think about all the jobs over the years that you like wanted to book, you got close to booking, ones like because and they're of all varying levels, right? Like at one point years ago, Drew and I had pitched a show to Joe Blow. We were going to do like a video show for their channel. That didn't happen. I was going to do some
Yep.
stuff with Nesson and Boston for sports. That didn't end up happening. Like I read for that new Quibi show, Drew and I both did for that one. Didn't get that. I read for Archie and Riverdale. Like, and I think about each one of those things, and I'm like, if that had happened, if I had booked Archie and Riverdale, like how would things look now? But like it doesn't really matter. Like, what's the point of thinking about any of that stuff?
Yeah.
Because I think everyone thinks that exact same way.
Yeah.
But so you mentioned the DC Daily gig, which I know was one in our space that was a big splash when it was announced and launched, and so many of our friends are like, so many of you guys got that job, which is really cool. It was a great group. How did that come about? I mean, I feel like I would have pinned you in like the horror movie world more so than like a hardcore DC fan.
So that came about because Machinima was one of the producers of the show. And I had worked with like Nick Gregorio, Phil Ligorio, those guys over at Machinima. Oh, Ricky and Elliot, on and off for years. And so, or Phil Larigo, excuse me, I misspoke earlier. But anyway, so they said, we're doing this DC pop culture thing. Will you please come in and audition? And I was like, yeah, of course, like, absolutely. Because I grew up on, not so much comics, admittedly, but movies and TV. Superman and Batman are a part of my DNA and have always been through all their iterations since I've been alive. Superman came to my 3rd birthday party and Batman came to my 4th birthday party. And that is true. I was the only little girl in Georgia who was like, yes, could Superman and Batman please come to my birthday? Thank you. So anyway, they asked me to do this, and pop culture in general, especially movies and TV, is my jam. So it's funny, I got hired in this senior host and producer job at Fandom in the spring of 2018. They had a policy where they had everybody start work on a Tuesday, right? So that the full-time employees could come in on Monday, get everything situated, and then the new person comes in on Tuesday. And my DC Daily audition was the Monday before I started at Fandom. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this because you never know. In our business, it's exactly what we were just talking about. This business is so fragile, especially the internet pop culture space. And so let's go ahead and make sure that we attend this audition. And the first call I made when Fandom, let go of their entire video department was to the team, the producers, and said, hey, so you might have seen on social media that I was working elsewhere, but guess what? I'm not anymore. So if you need me, I'm around. And by the end of the week, my deal was done and we shot the live stream with Kevin Smith and the whole cast like the next week.
Wow. Because the Phantom job, like I remember when the Phantom job, like when you got it, I think I had heard other people talking about that job was up. And then I remember when you posted on social media about the Phantom job. How long was that? Like 3 months?
April to August.
Okay, wow.
April to August.
Okay, so 6 months. That's a quick turnaround.
Was it though? April to May to June, July, August. 4. It seemed shorter, but also longer. It was a weird thing, but you know what? It was good for the time being, I guess. I will say this. It was the right move at the right time.
Yeah. It was a good gig. I mean, you and I were at Comic-Con that summer doing gigs. I think we were both doing the Halloween carpet. I remember you talked to Jamie Lee, which I remember I remember you got very emotional because I know she means a lot to you. That franchise means a lot to you.
She got very emotional because I asked her about Deborah Hill, who is the co-writer and producer of Halloween, and she's died. She had cancer and she died. And Jamie doesn't get asked about her. Asked about John. She gets asked about Nick Castle, who's the guy in the suit. She gets asked about all this. So I asked her, "What do you think Deborah would say 40 years later?" And Jamie started to cry. It was very sweet.
It's a good
It was
question.
very sweet.
Yeah. So that franchise and horror specifically, I already mentioned. I think people know it's a big part of your life. Where did that come from? Did you have a sibling or a parent that was like all about it, or did it sort of?
No, it just, when I was a kid, I was a scaredy kid. I was totally scared of everything, but I loved like dark fantasy. I loved Tim Burton, and the 80s was such a great time and early 90s was such a great time for being into weird stuff as a kid. So Legend and Labyrinth and Neverending Story and Pee Wee Herman and Tim Burton and Beetlejuice and Are You Afraid of the Dark? And so I always had an interest in it, but it scared me too much. But I always loved film as well. So pop culture, always. And so when I got into high school and I really started studying film academically, and I've also always been interested in politics. And so as a result, when I got into high school and I started looking a little closer at horror, and I started looking a little closer at how fear is represented, especially academically, I was like, oh, this is cool. And so that was sort of, when I really started the deep dive, was in high school.
Yeah, it's definitely something I don't connect. I think I like some horror movies, but I have never had that like excitement to dive into it. Maybe because it freaks me out, or just there's something about it that I don't quite. But I know it's been an important part of your Schmoedown career, and one of the things that we do here on this show on A Great Conversation is that the patrons get to submit questions from my guests, and so I have a few questions submitted by the patrons. One here from CJ Robinson, who is a double diamond member of the Nerd Network, is a straighten of the tie for you there. He's also a general in the Action Army, so you get to salute as well, which is a lot. He says, would you consider a one-time comeback to the Schmoedown for the possible horror tournament Christian said could happen next year?
No. Here's what you guys need to understand about the Schmoedown. How could you ever live up to anyone's expectations ever in the first place? And so to walk into that scenario is a lose-lose situation for me. If I do well, they go, yeah, of course she did well. She loves horror movies. That's all she does. If I suck, they're like, overrated, not interested. There's no benefit for me. So what I would do, and what I've offered to do many a time, is not only sit on the desk, but also write questions, because that is something that I really do enjoy doing. And I also feel like I am a good barometer. I wrote a couple of questions with Mark and Draco before one of the last, tournaments or whatever. Mark Draco is hard. He asks things that no sane human would know. And so I think I'm a good barometer of like, what's a regular question? What's an impossible question? What's in the middle? So no, I'm not playing in that. No.
I think what's amazing about what you just said, and what I love, is that your response to the idea of returning to the Schmoedown at all, I feel like kind of mimics exactly what you just said. Like, you're such a legend now that like returning, the pressure is so high. As soon as you get to that level you were at before you retired, like, and I never got to your level because I never beat you. But I mean, I won the title finally, and I know like when I won it, I was like, oh, this is so great. But it's like, well, I'm never gonna get a softball match again. It's never going to happen. Every person I play from here on out, unless I lose like 4 in a row, it's always going to be somebody that I probably will lose to, and I have to fight so hard to win against. And I have to act so confident that I'm going to win. And if I lose to a couple of those people, then I was overrated, and I should never have won the title in the first place.
Listen, man, quote the Sandlot: heroes get remembered, but legends never die. Do not let your legend get corrupted. Just back away quietly and let people think whatever they want to think.
Well, we're joking about it, but I mean, you obviously committed a lot of time and energy and effort into the Schmoedown. I know when you were doing it at your peak, it was a big part of your life. I know it was very important to you, and there's definitely some people that have questions about that.
Great.
So one question here is actually about this year, and it's this is from Charlotte Gherkin. So a salute to you, Charlotte, and the Straighten of the Tie. Question for Clarke. Hi, Clarke. Big fan of everything you've done in the Schmoedown. Just curious, how has COVID affected your role as commissioner this year in the Schmoedown? Were you originally going to be more involved in cutscenes and stuff like Emma and Sam last year?
Yes. Yes. And I was originally going to be on the road a little bit more, for sure. So I would have been at more live matches. I know that there was a huge, interest in doing like more of the Schmoedown. Okay, what was it called? Because I was actually legit out of town when they did it, but was it an expo? It was the Schmoedown where audience people could come and you would sign things, and
Yeah.
like a convention. Yeah. So I was out of town and I couldn't be there, and I was really disappointed. But I know that those in-person interactions with the fans on the road was going to be a big part of this year. And I would have been a lot more, and I would have done a lot more fan interaction. I always got so jealous because Rachel was able to travel in last year in a way that I wasn't. And so she had all these like great pictures with all these little girls and like all these, and I was like, oh, I'm so sad I can't be there. So I was really looking forward to that. And also I would have called some matches. I would have been on the desk live in that environment, which, we played live together. I love that environment.
Yeah.
And so yes is the answer. I would have been more front and center and more actively involved had COVID not changed all of our plans. Yeah,
It changed so many plans.
it sure did.
John Lestrina here, call sign #Ladies Night, and a Diamond patron here in the Nerd Network. If you were able to clone yourself, who would win in 5-round championship match, Wolves of Steel or the Shire Wolves? Wolves of Steel was my favorite team.
Great question. I do think the Shire Wolves, because Rachel is a beast. Shit. We know that. Listen, I love a Mark Riley, and he knows that. He knows. But I do think, here's what I think, and I have said this before. Mark Riley and I are more evenly matched and evenly paired. Rachel and I have different strengths and different weaknesses. So we really completed each other and filled in each other's blanks in a way that Riley and I just didn't, because we're too similar. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I do think that the combination of me plus Rachel was just covered more ground. And that's not a fault to anybody. It's just everyone's personal taste. And that's why you play teams, because you want to have a good, complicated, team that spans a lot of different material, essentially.
When you look back at the legacy and sort of how much time you spent doing it, and you think about the way fans remember, does it matter to you? Does it matter to you to be remembered as the greatest team of all time? Because I feel like you guys are, if you're not remembered as the greatest team of all time, you're in that top two sort of. You're always bouncing around like an above the line or like somebody like that,
Yeah, I mean, I think legacy is important, but I also think that the way we judge legacy is not even. And so I don't waste a lot of time worrying about if people think the Patriots would have smoked the Shire Wolves, because the game changed so much. I think, I will say this, and people can think I'm being arrogant or whatever, but I think I could have easily, had the rules evolved and the game evolved did when I was really playing in teams. If it had done that when I was really playing in singles, I think I could have easily been a singles champ. Because those games were so close. Those matches were 1 point. It just, and it was little stuff that Christian and I would have long conversations about after the fact, going, hey man, look, I get it. You're doing the best you can with what you can. But at the end of the day, me losing 1 point because of a weird question or a question that was not quite on the level cost me going to the championship. Do you know what I mean? It cost me playing for the belt.
I know exactly what you mean. I've had many of those conversations, and I've been in many of those matches, and it happens. And like in every sport, they evolve and rules change, but and every player gets affected by those things, which sucks. And it sucks to look back and remember those things. Obviously, I think probably the closest match I ever played and the most crushing loss I ever played was against you. Actually, it was the Shire Wolves Championship when you guys won the second one.
Mhm.
You know, because people gave you guys such a hard time for the first one because of the weird vacated belt and
Yeah.
the Finstock and Knapsack match and all that. And we played that crazy spectacular match, and it was just like you guys 12-0'd round 2, we 12-0'd round 2. Like speed round was crazy, and you know, that match came down to one question. It was 1 point. It could have literally been the difference
Yep.
of the way the question was asked. It could have been any number of things, and we could have won. You guys could have won, and that's just those losses are tough. They're really hard to stomach.
They are. And I think, you know, I just think for me with my legacy, I'm thrilled and flattered and happy to be remembered as Rachel's partner and part of the Shire Wolves. I think people don't think of me as a singles player as much because of the time that I was playing, and I didn't quite get there as a singles player. But I do think that if you look at the way the game changed and the time that I was active in the first couple of seasons, and then when Rachel and I really hit the ground, there was a difference. And I do think I could have had a singles belt at that time. But what I don't think is I could not have a singles belt now, because the game is crazy and everybody who plays it is nuts. I don't watch nearly enough movies to keep up. My ship has sailed. My time has come. I am proud of my legacy. Game over. But if we could have a time machine and go back in time, there are a couple of things that I was like, man, that was just, you know, whatever. Coin toss, essentially.
Would you say that's your sort of the one regret that was left in the Schmoedown when you left, was you never quite got the singles belt? Or would you say that it just...
I mean, fortunately, Rachel and I doing what we did for the women in the league was ultimately like, if that's my legacy, great. That's what I care about. I don't care about Clarke Wolfe. As Clarke Wolfe, I don't care about me having a singles belt. That means less to me. But if there was one thing that I could, as in a time machine, go back and like kind of do a little differently, I would have liked to have won the singles belt.
Yeah, I was so worried when I was going through that run, and I finally got there and I was playing it spectacular. I was thinking to myself, like, if I lose and I don't get this belt this time, I don't know if I'm gonna have it in me to put myself through this again. And then you have that thought of like, this is how I'll always get talked about as that person. But you got you're the greatest team of all time. So
I am fine with that. I'm fine with that.
And I think you played in multiple singles title matches, didn't you? Didn't you play against Ellis and also Levine?
I played against Levine for the belt, which went into like 4 rounds of overtime, 4 questions. That was, and I'm proud of that. Me and Sam Levine were a fucking coin toss. Like, I feel okay. I feel good.
Well, but that match was crazy, right? Because didn't you guys both miss your 2, 3, and 5 in that match? I've never seen that happen in the history of the game.
Both me and Sam Levine did not score a single point in round 5.
That's so wild. That's like unheard of.
It's crazy. Yeah. And then I went up against, I think I went up against Dan Murrell for a belt. Early in my career. That was not a great match for me. However, I will say, after that match, I fought really hard to get everybody the same questions in round 1, because and again, it's 100 years ago, but I remember thinking, damn, I knew all of Dan's round 1 questions. I knew none of mine. And it set me at such a disadvantage. I was like, dude, we got to do all the same in round 1. Like, this is silly. And we did make that change. And I think the game is better for it. So that's fine.
Yeah, it's much better for it. Yeah. There's a handful more questions here from people about your acting. And so the first one is going to be from Brienne Chandler, somebody you know very well.
Brienne!
Infinity nerd in the Nerd Network. Big straight to the tie there to you, Brienne. I appreciate that. I am sure you'll share this with the group, but I'd love to know what you are working on right now for acting. Are you focusing on stage or camera or both? Wishing you the best in your acting endeavors. And she put heart.
Thank you, Brienne. Brienne is a wonderful advocate and support, and she's a really sweet friend. So I just completed the weekend before COVID. Speaking of my DC love, I actually decided that for my acting reel, I wanted to have something where I was playing Lois Lane. So I put a crew together and hired an actor to play Clark Kent. And we shot a scene from, of all movies, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. But it's a really, if you're familiar with that movie, it's a scene where Lois brings Clarke Superman's cape, and Clarke is sick, and Lois thinks Clarke is going to die. And so she tells Clarke that if she could speak to Superman, she would tell him that she loved him. And it's a beautiful scene. It's sad because it's in a movie that's obviously not great. But it's also, you can watch the scene now. I actually watched it last week when I got the final cut of my version of it. And Margot Kidder, who I am a huge fan of, in Amityville, as Lois Lane, in Black Christmas. She's so talented. She was really struggling. I think you can see that she was really struggling. And so it's sad in a way. But that's a beautiful scene. We shot it. I shot a version of it. It came out so good. And so I'm going to share that with everybody in August on Lois Lane's birthday.
Oh, very cool.
So,
Where are you gonna put it up on YouTube?
I'll put it on
Vimeo,
social. Yeah. I'll just put it up everywhere. It's only like 3 minutes long, but it was a wonderful crew. Most of the crew actually was from DC Daily. They worked with me on their off time, and they worked for little money, and they were very generous. And the actor who played Clark Kent is named Billy Armstrong, and he's really talented. Not Billy Joe Armstrong, but yeah. And I'm really proud of that. So that was the last thing I completed before COVID. And yeah, right now, like I'm looking at you, Marvel, CW, DC Universe. I will say that's the thing about me that's kind of different, especially as I'm taking these acting classes, is my interest is horror, superheroes, and comedy. I have no interest in Meryl Streep winning an Oscar, like My Baby's Dead, like any of the. No, I do not. I want to entertain people. So fortunately, there's a lot of that shooting in Atlanta. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, so that's a lead into our next question here, because Tyler Schwent here wants to know, who's a general over in the Action Army. Call sign Bear Trap is what we call him in the Action Army. What's the there's call signs in the Action Army. I keep saying them like you know what I'm talking about.
I love all of these call signs.
They're
Mine
good.
would be a wolf, right? Something with a wolf.
Call sign the wolf. Yeah, I'll pivot to that in a second, but
Okay.
I'll ask his question here first. What's the difference in acting and directing a movie for you? As which do you prefer over the other? Also curious if you checked out that Code Orange album Underneath, since I recommended it to you and Riley.
Ooh, so thank you for re-recommending it to me, because I will, now that I have all the time, I will listen to it. So I haven't listened to it yet. It's funny. The more I produce, the more I think I might want to direct something. But I don't speak. There's so many parts of things that happen on a set that I don't know about. Meaning I don't know what the grip is supposed to be doing. I don't know how to, there are so many things that a director has to know about and oversee that I am just not aware of. So I feel a little illiterate in that way, but I would love to, like, for instance, lots of the actors on the CW show, Melissa Benoist just directed an episode of Supergirl. Oh my God, David Harewood on Supergirl has directed many episodes, and so on. A lot of these actors on these shows, after they've been on them for a while, shadow and then they direct an episode. To me, that would be a wonderful opportunity. In a perfect world, I would love to be on a show. If anybody's listening, I would love to be a regular on a show, and be able to really observe and take notes and potentially direct an episode of television in that way. And then maybe as I get older, I would maybe direct a feature. But yeah, I do think that directing is interesting and something that I would be, especially as a producer. I'm working so closely with the editor because it's my stuff that I'm producing. So I do feel like I know what I would want. It's just more about learning the craft of filmmaking, I think, a little bit more.
Do you watch all of those DC CW shows?
I watch some of them more closely than others. I'm a big Supergirl fan. I check in with Supergirl a lot more than, like, I never got into Arrow or Flash. But you guys, I love all the DC Universe shows, Doom Patrol. I'm not even on the show anymore, so I'm not lying. I love Doom Patrol and the animated Harley Quinn series. Like, I do keep up with those shows, but it's in terms of the Arrowverse, Supergirl is definitely the one that I'm most invested in.
Your favorite? Yeah, we had Jordan Calloway come on this show last week, who plays Painkiller on Black Lightning, which is cool. So,
Awesome. Oh my
yeah.
God. Oh my gosh. And I'm so blanking on her name right now. But we had one of the actresses from Black Lightning on DC Daily, Nafisa
Nafisa
Williams.
Williams. Yeah, she's
Oh my
great.
God.
She's excellent.
She is a star. Oh, and Batwoman. I have to say, I've watched all of Batwoman season 1. Cameron Johnson, I am obsessed with. He plays Luke Fox, and Nicole Kang, I love, and the gal who plays Alice, who not only is on that show and she's so good, but she was on Birds of Prey from the
Okay,
2000s
yeah. Wow.
as a little baby, and we did that on DC Daily. So I am really caught up on Batwoman, and I like. At first I was hesitant about them recasting Kate or not recasting Kate Kane. I thought they should have just cast a new actress the way you cast a new Batman. Like, who cares? But they seem to be really passionate about creating this new character, Ryan Wilder. So I'm very curious to see what they have to say or what they're doing. But yeah, Batwoman, I'm interested in.
Have you thought at all about doing like making your own DC related content? Just because that audience was so excited to hear you talk about it all the time, and you know,
I have thought about that, but you know very well, Ben, how much post production is hard. And doing the work behind the scenes is really hard. And now, don't get me wrong, it's very gratifying when people watch it and they engage with it, and you feel like, okay, my audience likes what I'm putting out there. But I do feel like you really have to love what you're working on, because it's not as simple as just talking into a camera about a thing, you know?
yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, it's I mean, any
I
kind of
know, you
meaningful
know.
content takes time. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go in and do all kinds of After Effects and intros and outros to this and shout
Please
people out.
put a filter on my face to make me look that much more beautiful and younger.
We're gonna we're gonna make you look like a superhero. I'm gonna put a
Oh my
filter to
God.
make you look like Lois Lane the entire time.
Oh yes, please. Thank you.
Let's see. I think we've got one more question here. This one
Sure.
is from call sign Quinn, Dr. Megs. What are the biggest differences you see in the entertainment industry working in Atlanta versus LA?
Great question. So I will be totally honest. I don't even have an agent out here right now. I am just like, I have contacts and I have friends who are hopefully going to provide some introductions for me. I've done my research. I found a handful of agents that I would like to target, one of which came from Los Angeles in 2017 and then moved here. And he himself is a DC fan, so I'm hoping I got that
Cool.
going for me. But I just think that I do think it's a smaller. When I say it's a smaller market, there are a lot of people here, but I will say that it feels a little bit more approachable. But I guess coming from LA, when you're just inundated, like literally your entire life, whether you're in it or not, that whole city is built around the industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
this Atlanta's not, it's just almost like this wonderful bonus. So I would love to check back in with you in 3 to 6 months and tell you what I think the answer to that question is. But I'm optimistic. That's what I will say. I feel like I've done the work. I feel like a lot of the types of shows that I would love to be a part of are shooting here, genre specific shows. And I have a good feeling. So I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic. But let's check back in a little while and see what my real answer is to that question.
Well, that's a good answer to the question. I'm sure Dr. Megs will be following along. So thanks for that. Thanks
Please.
for those questions, guys. I appreciate all of the wonderful questions from the patrons of the show. So with the ability to jump around and make a move like this, you mentioned you brought your dog with you. Have you noticed that in your 10 years of living in Los Angeles, maintaining a work life and a personal life, like a relationship, has that been difficult to balance the two things?
Not for me, because maintaining a relationship, a personal life, is very important to me. One of my favorite people is Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and she has this quote where she said, "Don't confuse having a career with having a life." And she's obviously a woman who's very driven, and her career is famously, very famously, very important to her. But so I think about that a lot. But for me, it's actually not challenging to have romantic relationships, friendships, because my life does not need to, my self-worth, and that's what I think I've learned in 10 plus years of being in Los Angeles, is that my self-worth does not revolve around an industry. And I've worked hard to actually make that happen. By the way, it's very easy. It's hard to be like, no, 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 I'm not defined by what I'm working on, who my agent is, blah, 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 right? But so for me, there's always time for someone I love, whether that's a friend or a romantic partner or a family member. There's always time. And I think that, I don't know if you've experienced this, you do spend time with like A-listers or people who you admire in our business. For me at least, I've noticed that, like, yeah, they go home to their family, or if they need to call their sister, they do, or if they,
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, you know what that is? It's boundaries. Lots of people who are trying to achieve things in our business do not have boundaries because they think that will make them more valuable to our business. And I think it's
Yeah,
quite
that's really interesting.
the opposite. I think if you have boundaries and you say no, the industry wants you more. uh, so
Yeah, that's super interesting. Like you sort of have to. I recently signed with a hosting agent finally after all these years.
congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and it was kind of by accident. I submitted on a job that was specifically asking for non-white people, but I didn't see it in the post, and
Happy
submitted
accident.
anyway. Yeah, exactly. And then when I looked back, I was like, "Oh, this is what a jackass thing to do in 2020." And I like deleted the post. But the people emailed me and they're like, "Hey, you're not right for this, obviously, but do you have an agent?" And so I got to meet with them, and uh, when we were talking about the kind of stuff to go out for, it was super interesting to be at this point in my life now, compared to where I was 10 years ago 11 years ago when I first moved to LA. And it was like, here's a list of the things that I'm not interested in doing. I'm not going to drive across town to go sit in a waiting room for 3 hours to hopefully book a job that pays me $500 for the day. I
Good,
am not at a point in my life anymore where I have the ability to do that. My
good.
days can't afford the drive and the wait. And if that means like, and I was like, and I have to be honest with you guys, because I don't want you asking me if I can and then I'm not available and disappointing you, because that's not fair for anyone. But I have to be honest with you about it because 22-year-old me was probably excited to go do that. And
Yeah,
booking a job for $500 sounded awesome to 22-year-old me, you know? But you grow and you change and you kind of learn like this is just what I'm comfortable with. And but I think also our dreams have to evolve and change, which is
yes,
that's hard, right? That's a hard
yes.
reality to accept.
Oh, I wish we had another hour to talk about this. because because truthfully, if I went through a breakup a year ago, and it was a significant breakup, and
Yeah.
if you had asked me a year ago, hey Clark, if you could go to Atlanta, and let's say in theory, and you book a series regular, but it's in Atlanta, would you? And I would be like, no, no, I don't want to go back. I don't want to do that. Go back. It's only going back for me because I happen to be from here, right?
Yeah.
The point is, I've talked to so many actors, directors, people who I am friends with in our industry, who this pandemic and the uprising in our country and the things that are being brought to light and people are talking about, especially as white people, we are being made more aware of the life, right? Life is happening right now, and things that are bigger than Tenant are happening right now. And I've talked to so many people who have started to say, what is my life about? What does it mean?
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, and that's where I'm at right now. And as a single person, as a person whose career is not nearly where I want it to be, as a person who is engaged and involved, hopefully, in the world around her, yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot. I've been thinking about all of that a lot, and it's part of the reason why I'm here. If yeah, I'm just open to so much more than I was a year ago, and yeah.
when your significant breakup you mentioned started and you were in that like sort of just what do I do next phase,
Mhm.
what did you do to cope in terms of creatively? Did you start to write more? Did you, I mean, because you said you're more open than you were a year ago. So a year ago, were you like feeling stifled? You couldn't figure out how to get it going yet, or what
It
was
was
that
just
like?
more it was more like I had gotten trapped in like, what do I think I need to do? What do I think, what does
Yeah.
LA want me to do? And and I think that over time I sort of went, okay, I've got this incredible blessing with DC Daily, which is a regular job that I'm proud to do, that is fun to do, and it pays my bills. Amazing. What else am I doing? So I teamed up with Chelsea Stardust, who directed Satanic Panic, and she and I wrote a slasher movie together, which I'm insanely proud of and I hope gets made. And I, started taking classes with Leslie Kahn because I was like, okay, I got to get, if I want to be an actress, I don't know what the hell I'm doing in terms of this town and auditioning. I got to get that together, like right now. It was that kind of stuff. I redecorated my apartment. I was like, you know what? I need, what does Clarke now, not Clarke when she moved into this place, not Clarke when she was with this person. Like, what do I really want? And so I think sort of taking that kind of control, I started working out more. I started watching what I ate more. Like, I just started paying attention to myself and asking myself really hard questions. And also, I'm a big fan of therapy. So if you've been thinking about it, do it. But like that kind of stuff, like honestly, all of it. And the person I am today is very different than the person I was a year ago. So I'm proud of that.
I completely agree. I just recently started seeing a therapist, and it's been great. It was. I mean,
Good job.
I've like over the years seen a therapist here and there, but like very recently, it felt sort of necessary in some ways to figure a few things out, and
Good.
it's been very helpful for me, to think about. Because I think the weirdest thing, Clarke, and you can tell me if you relate to this, is you reach a certain point in your professional life, and you kind of look around and you go like, okay, I'm not at the bottom anymore. I did something, so I've achieved some like tiny level, and I don't really know where actually this level is compared to the rest of the world. I don't know the way people see around me and the people above me what they look down at, but I know that I did something. So I
Yes.
can't just demo it all and start over because I want it to feel like more than it does now. But it's like you definitely want it to feel like more than it because you want to achieve more. And so when
Mhm.
you're in that moment, it's like, how do you do it? But also, how do you be happy with what you have? That's the hardest part for me is and so I started on this channel on Monday nights. I'm doing this like positivity stream now where I'm like literally saying to to the viewers, like, let's set goals together, if you guys
I
do
love
these
that.
30-day challenges, I'll shout you out on the show and congratulate you for working out or not drinking or saving money or whatever it is that you guys want to do. And we'll all do it together because it'll be awesome. It'll be way more fun to feel like encouraged and positive and have a place to show up. And that's making me happier. That's important to do, right?
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. I like that a lot. And I think that's really, and also you don't have to use your platform that way. And so I think it speaks really highly of the fact that you are interested in using your platform that way. I think that's amazing and wonderful. And I have to say, like, one of my favorite things, when I was like really, and I still for people who follow me on Instagram, I still do my Pure Bar things. I just don't, it feels like in the midst of the pandemic and also, the social things that we're all dealing with, and it just doesn't feel necessarily appropriate all the time to be
Yeah.
like, I did Pure Bar today. But I will say that, those messages, those DMs I got saying like, you hitting 100 made me go and do one. You doing
Yeah.
this made me, that makes me feel so good. That makes me feel good, and it makes me feel like yay for them. Not about me. It's about them. And so yes, I do think that like setting goals and also taking a minute to recognize, like you said, being happy with what you have. I mean, again, I think the pandemic has really everything over the last handful of months has really put that into perspective. And by the way, not all the time. I certainly sit. I've been in Atlanta for 2 weeks and I've already had moments of, did I make a mistake? What the hell am I doing? What did I do? Why am I here? Am I a failure because I'm in my 30s and I am living with my parents? What am I doing?
You gotta
But
write
also,
something about that. That'll
I
be pure comedy. Yeah.
oh my God, I thought, yes, exactly. But that said, I also, I think that the most powerful thing we can do is choosing to reframe, to
Yeah.
say, no, I have the privilege and opportunity to drive across the country, to see this country, to stay on this gorgeous farm in Ohio with one of my best friends, to have my parents take care of me for a minute.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't feel like a failure. That feels honestly like a advantage that not everybody has. And so not putting yourself down and being proud of what you've done. I think that's it. You know what I mean? I really do. Being proud and saying like, I haven't done it all. No, there's always more. But I am proud of that little thing that I have done because
Yeah.
other people don't. Other
Right.
people don't do
Totally.
it.
It's that same thing. It's what have I actually? We all exist somewhere because if we're not fucking Dwayne the Rock Johnson, then we exist somewhere in the middle of success. And what
And
is that?
Dwayne the Rock Johnson is like, but I'm not Tom Cruise.
Right.
But
He's
I'm not,
totally.
and you're like,
Cruz is probably thinking to himself. I'm sure that he's not Xenu. I don't know. But anyway,
I
there's
was
someone.
about to say that, but I didn't know if that was inappropriate. So I'm so glad you did, because that's the joke I was going to make.
Oh, he's my favorite of all time. So I think I can make the joke in good conscience. But were your parents so excited, by the way, when you told them you were coming home? Honestly, were they just like, we get to see you? We're like thrilled.
My parents are not warm and fuzzy parents, but they were happy that I was coming back, and they're happy to have me. I play golf with them, and I'm not terrible. I haven't swung a golf club since January. But we played on Tuesday and we played today. And I crushed the ball a handful of times. And I tell you what, my mom, who is not a warm and fuzzy mom, said to me, I just love seeing you hit the ball like that. And she's never said anything like that to me in my life. So in their way, they're happy to have me, and I'm happy to be with them too.
So my last question to you, and I want to ask this in like a respectful and appropriate way,
Please,
but I'm
go
curious
for it.
about it. So, okay, you were in this relationship for how long with this guy?
A little over 2 years.
Okay, so 2 years. And so now you're in the like rediscovering who you are creatively, and also it's a pandemic. How is dating even? Are you on an app?
Oh my
Like,
God.
what are you doing? Like, is it
No.
just like a shit show? Like, what is it?
This is a very interesting question, because I think all single people are thinking about this right now.
Yeah, and that's what I'm asking you.
The New York Times even has a whole podcast about this now, where they have celebrities reading these stories about dating. So at first, I will say, I was very open to online dating in the time of the pandemic, because I thought actually that could be really good, because you kind of remove the physical pressure of whatever, and you just talk to somebody. You have to just talk. And I got a cocktail right here. Like you can sit at your computer and have a drink or two and do a happy hour, and it's like fun. So I'm open to that. However, I did kind of get to a place where I realized maybe with a stranger, I don't know, because because dating, if you've dated, which I've dated a lot in my adult life, I've had, my last relationship was by far the most significant. So, I've been single for a long time. It's so easy for people to be like, nah, I'm all set. And so I have not been doing the apps, but I totally encourage people to, if they think that would be something that they feel comfortable with. I just am in a place right now, currently speaking about the pandemic, that I'm not like, I don't think that's right for me. But I will say that when I started coming out here, I had the thought, like, I don't know, I have a good feeling. Like maybe I'll meet somebody, because I will say in the South. Ben, where are you from?
Seattle.
Okay, so that's different. In the South, people want to get married, men and women. They want to have families. Sometimes, most of the time, they do it way too early. That's why there are a lot of divorces and unhappy marriages in the South. But in Los Angeles, people want to work on their careers. Mm-hmm. And it is the ultimate excuse. And so I was kind of like, well, I've never been married before and I'm self sufficient and I think that I'm a nice person. I think I'm a nice lady. So maybe I'll find somebody here that will like want to be in a serious relationship that will get to a place where we could get married. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like optimistic. That said, where am I going to meet this person? I don't know. I like
Right.
under my bed somewhere. I don't know. I mean, how have you? I don't know. Are you dating somebody? Have you found this to be weird in the pandemic?
I haven't dated in LA very much. There was a few years where I was like properly single and I dated in my mid 20s. But I was also like a personal trainer bartender who was like get drunk and go hiking during the day guy. It was great. It was great life. It was so much
That
fun.
sounds that sounds awesome.
Oh, it was phenomenal. I got to be like drink a lot and be shredded all the time and like just no money. It was very very different than I'm fatter and have a job now, so there's all those things. But
It's a trade-off.
yeah, it's a trade off. It's a trade off. So, but I don't know. That's why I was asking you because you seemed very sort of like you've moved on from and you're in a
Mhm.
place where you're like sort of ready for it. That's why I was asking
Yeah.
because I think it's so interesting. I think if you're like 23, 24, 25 and you're in the pandemic, I think it's got to be the same as it always is. It's you just can't really see each other. And I think people are probably saying fuck it a lot of the time and meeting up anyway. And there's
Yeah.
probably some Zoom dates. But if you're like our age, we're in your later part of your 20s into your 30s, like
Mhm.
I think people view it differently because who
Yeah.
has fucking time for that other kind of thing? So
That's the thing is like the question is who has time or who has all the time? Like
yeah, right.
like I will say there was a guy that I kind of knew previously who I did a thing with as a group on a Zoom. And then after the fact, he was like, "You want to FaceTime?" And I was like, "Oh, sure." And then it like felt like a date. And then at the end,
Right.
he was like, "We should do this again. I really had fun." And I was like, "Me too." And then he like never talked to me again.
Oh no. Oh
So
no.
the ghosting fucking oh, I don't know if we can curse. The
You can
ghosting
curse. You're pissed.
happens.
Well, I get it.
Well, no, but the ghosting happens no matter what. What is happening? What is happening? That was actually the moment where I realized I'm not doing this with a stranger. Because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
I know who I just had a 2 hour like FaceTime impromptu date with and like really felt like I hit it off. And then he just totally bailed and never talked to me again. I was like, all right, I can't do this with somebody I don't know, you know?
There's so many details to all you're describing that I'm thinking about that A would make for really funny writing, but B, I'm like, okay, so like what? You get all like, do you get dressed so that if you like angle down or drop the phone, because like I just do work meetings in like this in my underwear. That's
Yeah,
like,
do you have
and I can't
jammies
really,
on underneath
I have like
or boxers?
I'm gonna be like dead serious. What I'm wearing is I've got these running shorts that I bought about a year ago when I weighed a lot less, and they were pretty snug. They were pretty snug then, but then I gained some weight back, and they're definitely too small, and I couldn't really go outside in them. And then I've got UGG boots on because the bottoms are starting to peel off, but they work because there's like a really uncomfortable crossbar on this stool that hurts my feet,
Oh,
so I need to wear the UGG boots.
I love everything you are describing right now. This is wonderful. Love it.
But I've
Snaps
got
to
a
that.
blazer, and I've got a blazer, and I've got product in my hair, so we're doing
Y-
okay.
You did more. I got embarrassed because right before we were about to get on, I put the light on and then I looked at the QuickTime test video and I was like, all right, you have to put makeup on. So I put a little on for you
I
because I knew
appreciate it,
you'd
Clarke.
be wearing a suit. You'd be wearing a suit. So I was like, all right, you got to put a little makeup on. You got to do a little.
Yeah, you crushed it. You did a good job. Well, I think we're just about out of time,
Okay.
guys. I appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode of A Great Conversation. Be sure to follow along with everything Clarke is doing at Clarke Wolfe. In August, you guys can check out this amazing this Lois Lane video.
Yes,
I
yes.
can't wait to see it. It's gonna be
I'll
cool to see.
It'll be on all my socials. So if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, you'll see it.
Yeah, and if you guys are watching along and you want to support what we're doing on the channel, be sure to wait. I think there's a thing I can hit here. There we go. Leave a comment, hit
Fancy.
subscribe. Yeah, so please do that. The thumbs up button. And when the video's over, I'll say this again in a little outro, but leave a comment because comments mean a lot on YouTube videos. Some people don't know that, but the algorithm favors them. And say all the nice things about Clarke. It was good to see her. It's good to talk to you, Clarke. I haven't gotten to see you in a long time.
It was so good to see you too, Ben. I don't feel like we've really gotten a chance to talk since last Comic-Con, probably.
Yeah, probably it's been like a year, probably.
A
Yeah.
year, because digital Comic-Con's coming right up. So yeah, it's been too long.
Yeah, for sure. Well, guys, we're going to get out of here, but thanks for watching and be sure to tune in. Oh, wait, no, I have one more question. Sorry. I hate to do this, but I got to keep it for 2 minutes.
I'm here. Do it.
Your theme song in the Schmoedown is Werewolves of London. And well, or it was in the pre like licensed music thing. There's a scene in The Color of Money that I'm sure you know well, probably I'm assuming, because the song plays and Cruz is doing his whole bit and he's dancing and he's singing the song. One of my all-time favorites. And I think inspired by this thought that I had during the show, I think my next episode of Song from the Scene, where I like break down a great scene in a movie and a great song, then I cover the song on the show. I think I'm going to do Werewolves of London, and I will shout you out in the video because it's a fucking great song. It's a fucking great scene, and it's an incredible theme song for you. It was always so good. It got me going every time you came in.
I think Christian picked it.
Really? So you don't even know the scene?
I've never seen Color of Money. Scene. I will say though, I wanted Hungry Like the Wolf.
That's also really good.
That one was me, for sure. But Werewolves of London was Christian. Christian picked that, so I can't take credit for it.
Have you ever seen The Hustler before?
No, I've never seen.
Okay, both good. I think The Hustler's probably better, but doesn't have Tom Cruise, and Color of Money does. So
early '80s Tom Cruise makes me a little feel weird because it's a little oversexed. It's a little because it's '80s, and then it's Tom Cruise, and Tom Cruise is handsome and dreamy in ways, but also like I know too much about him.
Yeah,
he's too short.
Well, I'm pretty sure if we're speaking honestly about Tom Cruise, this is the trajectory. There's like early Tom Cruise through
Legend,
the like 90s,
where he had weird teeth. Yes,
and he's a little weird looking, and like they were trying to figure out what to do. Then there's like peak sexy Tom Cruise, which is late 90s into the mid 2000s. Like, so that's like Minority Report, Last Samurai era. He's like pretty built. He doesn't look like a kid anymore. And then he transcended sexuality and stopped being a being that had any of those feelings. And then he just became an action star.
I think Top Gun Tom Cruise is, to me, the sexiest.
You're in, okay, so the volleyball Tom Cruise.
It's less about that. It's more jumpsuit and aviator. Do I have a crush on Joe Biden? Is that maybe what it is? The jumpsuit and aviators and a really big smile? Maybe I'm like Leslie Knope, and I think Joe Biden is a dreamboat. I don't know. But it's that one. It's less about the volleyball scene. In that scene, I'm looking not at him.
Yeah, you're looking at the other dudes, or I don't know. Who plays volleyball in jeans, by the way? I don't even know what they're doing in that scene.
Who play that? I know what they're doing in that scene. They're trying to, show off. That's what they're trying.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's my peak Tom Cruise for me is Top Gun, and then everything else he's just Tom Cruise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree. He's like not a sexual being. I like can't when you watch him. It's like watching him like Al Pacino in like love scenes. It's the same thing. It's just it's weird. It doesn't like.
Oh my God, young Al Pacino was hot AF, but then he crossed over, and you're just like, no.
Hard to watch.
Yeah, this is another podcast, but we should continue this conversation because there are a lot of leading men who just get to a point where you're like, no, I don't. No,
I'll probably take some portion of this as the cold open. I hope after we're back in this thing.
Okay, fair.
This will be good. So, anyway, guys, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and thank you to Clarke Wolfe for coming and hanging out. We'll see you guys on the next one.
And that's going to wrap up another episode of A Great Conversation. Thank you guys all so much for watching the show. Thanks for tuning in every week. This show has been a dream of mine, and you guys are making that dream come true. So that is awesome. A big time thank you to all of the Double Diamond members on the Nerd Network here. Straightening of the Tie to Charlotte Gherkin, CJ Robinson, Philip Gustafson, Jeremiah Morris, Pardis, Jessa Dawson, and Joseph Boros. Your support means the world to me, guys. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already hit subscribe, please do, and leave a comment below. As soon as this video is done streaming, it's going to be in like a minute. this thing will post and you guys can leave comments then. So please leave one, your thoughts. I'll respond to it. I'd love to hear what you guys think. And comments really do boost the algorithm and help these videos do a little better. If you haven't checked out the other stuff that we're doing here on Nerds and Suits, check out patreon.com/nerdsandsuits. You can see other shows, Song from the Scene. All the platinum and above patrons' names are scrolling right now as producers of the show. So thanks to everybody there. Check out Action Industries, all the fun stuff. We've got Mike Kalinowski and maybe even Shannon Barney coming on this Sunday for the Action Guys. Check out my streaming stuff I'm doing on Twitch, Ben Bateman Streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/Ben Bateman Streaming. That's kind of it. That's all the plugs for today. Thanks again for watching, guys, and stay tuned for next week's episode of a great conversation with Johnny Cruz, voice of Lucio in Overwatch, somebody I'm very excited for you guys to hear from. All right, guys, enjoy. Have a great Friday.